I just want to say thank you all for joining us today on our first virtual showcase. This is our first of 4 showcases we plan to have this year, and it's a new experience, and we're just going to enjoy everything that we have available today. So this showcase is focused on how to continue farm to school during our COVID times. So we do want to thank the USDA and get my thing out of the way here, the Office of Community Food Systems and the Farm to School grant for allowing or for helping us provide the finances for everything that we do farm to school. So today we have 4 awesome presenters. We also have Aubrey Roth, who is our Farm to School coordinator, and Sarah Penix, who is the Farm to School Vista, both working for Team Nutrition. Presenting today will be Jason Mandela from Garden City Harvest, JB Capdeville from Paulson School District, and then we have Fiona Jensen Hitch from Columbia Falls School District, and then Kristen Roth from the Missoula County Public Schools. And each of them have created a video for us today, and we'll do a small introduction of them when it's their presentation time. So the agenda today, we're going to obviously start with the welcome and the introductions, which I rushed through. We have the Farm to School during COVID presentations, and there are 4 of those. We'll do a small breakout on eating mindfully, and then have the rest of the presentations. We'll have our lunch break, and then we'll come back and talk about how to plan and just any questions that you have. During the entirety of the day, if you have a question for any of the presenters or just a general question, you can type that into the chat box, and Aubrey and or Sarah will get to those as the time presents. I think I have everything. I believe we're going to turn it over to Miss Aubrey, and she's going to tell us how to do our next steps.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see you all. I'm just going to stop my video here for a sec. Okay, so in case you're not familiar with Zoom, I know many of you are, and we've all been Zooming a lot lately, but just to give you a quick tutorial so that we can all be on the same page about how to use Zoom and we can have a really effective and engaging and fun event today. So first off, we are recording this, and we will post the recording on our training and events page on the Montana Farm to School site. So definitely check that out, but just as a warning that we are recording now. The first most important thing is mute and unmute, as well as your audio settings. So here on the slide, you'll see where that button is. If you're connected on a computer, on a mobile device, it's going to look a little different, but this shows you being muted with a line through there. And then if you click that button again, it will unmute you, and then you can talk. And we encourage you to unmute yourself if you do have a question. But as Faith said, you can also put your questions or comments in the chat box at any time. So the next piece is the video turning on and off. So we'd love for you to turn on your videos, especially during the discussion parts. But we know that if you're having internet connectivity issues, that it is helpful for you to turn off your video to help your audio still come through. So if you do have weak internet or having a little spotty issues today with that, then feel free to turn off your video. But especially during the discussion parts, we encourage you to turn on your video. And then, of course, as we said, we encourage you to use the chat box throughout. So if an idea or a question pops into your mind, type it into the chat box. And then when it's time for Q&A, we will elevate that and get your question asked. Especially if you're also having any technical issues, then type it in there. You can choose everyone, and then everyone can see your comment, or you can choose to send it to one of us. If you're having technical difficulties, you might want to send it to either myself, Aubrey, or Sarah Penix, and we'll help you out directly. And then we will be using breakout rooms in Zoom today. So when we get to that point, you will see an invitation like this one here, and you'll click join breakout room. It'll put you into the room that we've designated for you. And then when we're done with the breakout rooms, you don't have to do anything. It'll bring you right back. So with that, I'm just going to jump into giving us a little grounding in what Farm to School is. So Farm to School is an umbrella term or a movement to connect children to their food to improve their health, support farmers, ranchers, and food businesses, and strengthen communities through the 3 core elements, which are shown here: procurement, education, and school gardens. Farm to School programs generally work best when each of these 3 core elements are represented. And as you'll see throughout this event, there are many ways to implement Farm to School. Farm to School is not a program you sign up to do, but rather you build it to meet your school and community's interests and resources. So let's just take a look at these core elements with examples. So procurement, which includes buying and serving local foods in school and after school meals and snacks. Schools are sourcing local foods from all 5 food groups, from apples to beef and beyond. This includes food purchased from local farmers, ranchers, and processors, as well as food grown and raised at schools. Growing and raising food with students is a great way to engage them in the process and get them excited about unfamiliar foods. School gardens vary in size, type, and purpose, and some are even farms with livestock. They can be educational. They could be in-ground gardens, raised bed greenhouses, or indoor gardens. And your garden could be even unconventional, like Gallatin Valley Farm to School's Bob the Greenhouse bus that provides mobile school garden education throughout the Gallatin Valley. Definitely the broadest of the 3 core elements, the education piece spans food, nutrition, and agriculture-based education. Farm to School education can take place anywhere. Here, Gallatin Valley Farm to School provides in-classroom lessons at a Bozeman elementary school. And getting kids engaged in cooking is another important piece of Farm to School. And obviously this picture was taken outside of COVID times, so cooking may look a bit different now. Of course, we're excited to say that Farm to School is growing in Montana. In 2018-19, 54.8% of schools were implementing Farm to School, and now that has grown to 57.1%. And this is from our annual report just released from the 2018-19 school year. So check that out on our website. There are many benefits to Farm to School programs, as you'll see throughout this showcase. I encourage you to check out the National Farm to School Network's benefits fact sheet, whose link is at the bottom of the slide, for more information about the impacts of these initiatives. The Montana Farm to School leadership team provides partnerships across the state to build Farm to School initiatives. We welcome your participation in our 5 working groups, so contact me if you're interested in getting involved in that conversation at the statewide level. So I know that's a quick overview of what Farm to School is, but don't worry, we'll provide more resources and information later in this event.
So our first presenter is Jason Mandela. He works for Garden City Harvest out of Missoula. He has been the Farm to School director for 13 years, and I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to share with us.
Hey everybody, my name is Jason Mandela, and I'm the Farm to School director for Garden City Harvest in Missoula, Montana. And I am here today to talk to you about building effective school garden committees. These are an essential part of having an outdoor classroom space that is usable, functional. Hey everybody, my name is Jason Mandela. We're going to jump right into the components of a effective school garden committee. Okay, so at Garden City Harvest, we've created a document to help schools create outdoor learning centers that are the home of their school gardens. I like to say that we don't want to limit the space to a garden space. We want it to be inclusive of all the potential learning activities. So I prefer to call them outdoor learning centers. And a big success of those is having a great school garden committee. So there's a big chunk of this guidebook that goes into that. So we're going to look at that in detail here today. If folks are interested in getting their hands on this guidebook, we are more than willing to send you that for free. And I'll give you my contact information at the end of the video. So let's take a look at the members of a great school garden committee. This is a group of people that you're going to assemble before you create your school garden. If you already have a school garden and you're the only one running it, or you have a few people, you can certainly do it afterwards. The people are going to change throughout the years. Obviously, kids are going to move on, and that means parents will move on, and teachers are going to move on as well. So it won't be the same people, obviously, the entire time. But these are some of the roles and responsibilities that we want to make sure are covered when creating a school garden committee, no matter when it's at day 1 or year 10. So the most important is the chair or the president of the school garden committee. We like to have this person not be a teacher, to be honest. And the reason is teachers are already very, very busy people. Not to say we all aren't, but teachers have a lot on their plates at the school already. They're already on many committees. So if you can get a really motivated parent, or someone from outside the school, maybe it's a partner organization, to be the chair, I think that works out a little bit better. Certainly not limited to non-teachers. I just think it's a little bit easier to put it in someone else's hands. This is someone who's going to be super enthusiastic about the garden. They're going to be a leader. They're going to be an advocate for the garden. They're going to make sure that the meetings happen. They're going to make sure those meetings have agendas. They may be writing updates about the garden's happenings in the school newsletter, or taking care of a bulletin board inside the school that has all the information about the garden. We'll talk about meetings a little bit later. So chair, super essential. You're also going to need a secretary, or whatever you want to call this person, a person who takes notes for the garden and for the meetings. And this is a person who is good at taking notes, basically, and is interested in helping out with the school garden. You don't want this to be the chair. Some of these elements can overlap, or some of these roles can overlap. We don't want the chair taking the notes, is the big thing. And as you can see here on this list, I have stars next to some of these. Those are really the essential ones. The others are not 100% essential to having a great committee, but are good things to have as part of your garden committee. So someone to take notes for sure, and to get those notes out to people who attended the meeting or maybe missed the meeting. You're also going to want a treasurer, someone that's going to deal with the money. This could be the chair as well. This could be the secretary as well. This could be an overlapping position, but we want someone to know what's going on with the funding for the garden. Oftentimes, from my experience, we have put school garden committees, they've been nestled under the PTAs or PTOs at a school. So there'll be a subcommittee for one of those, which works out well because the PTA has a fair amount of fundraising capabilities already in place usually. So it's a good way to get, your garden committee moving quickly. It's also a part of the school that exists already, so it's easy to get folks involved through the PTA. So I highly recommend doing that. You could nestle your garden committee under the existing school committees. If your school has, let's say, a green schools committee or something like that, you could become part of that. I think it's better for it to be on its own, and I think it's better for it to be a parent-teacher endeavor, not just teachers alone. It puts, again, a little bit too much on their plate. So beyond chair, secretary, and treasurer, you're definitely going to want to have what we call a garden education liaison. This is a person who works as a go-between between teachers and using the garden. This means potentially scheduling the garden space for activities, for lessons, for outside organizations that may not be direct partners in the garden, but are going to use the space to educate the students at the school. So you're going to want that person. Again, that could be the chair. Again, we don't want to put too much on one person. So it's good to spread these roles and responsibilities out. But again, you could combine some of these, and that one could be combined. I would recommend this not being a teacher. It's hard for a teacher to be that go-between between the garden space and other teachers. We don't want them to be in a position to have to, call out their peers for not showing up for a lesson or something like that. It's a lot better, I think, if a parent takes care of this role, or maybe some other internal employee at the school. Those are the 4 really main essential ones. We have a couple other down here that are really nice to have. Again, fundraiser is kind of goes along with treasurer. It should be everyone's responsibility, but if you do have someone at the school or a parent who is good at this, experienced at grant writing, is not afraid to ask for money, that's a great person to have. You may, depending on what phase you're in your garden, want an event/party planner, someone that will make sure there's food for volunteers if you're doing a big build day or something like that. Maybe extending the use of the garden into the community. This could be their role. So that's another good one to have. Not 100% necessary though. And then just folks who are interested in the garden. As I said earlier, people are coming and going on this committee because kids are moving on, parents lose interest, teachers move on. So you want as many people there as you can. That being said, I wouldn't try to cap it at maybe 10 or 12 people per meeting because it can get bogged down if you have too many folks there. But definitely continue recruitment. A recruitment process should always be happening with this committee. And then you may want some project leaders. When you're going to have a major build project at the beginning of the garden, or you're going to add a learning space or a shade structure or a shed, that's when you're going to want to assign that kind of stuff to people who have those skills. So you might find a parent or a teacher who has those skills and make them a project leader for that kind of stuff. Those are the big ones that we've identified over the years. When you have your garden committee, you're going to want to meet at least 4 times a year is what we go for. 2 in the fall, 2 in the spring, just to get your plans ready for the coming growing season and for the following growing season. See where your money's at, stuff like that. Those meetings shouldn't take more than an hour. I highly recommend doing those meetings off-site if it's not nice out. If it's nice, do them in the garden space. I think it's great. If it's not, do them somewhere fun, not at the school, so that you can draw folks in. Nobody wants to go back to the school at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock after they've had a full work day there, or they've already been there to pick up their child. One other note, a lot of my experience in this is from a vantage point of elementary schools. If you have a middle school or high school garden or even a college garden, I would highly recommend having those students be involved in this too. Maybe they're not at every meeting, but they have a voice, and we want them to be heard, and this is their garden too. That's a little bit more difficult to do at a elementary school level. So that's about all I have. We had a short window to do this in. I hope this helps out. If you're interested in getting more information and getting this document, feel free to contact me at jason@gardencityharvest.org.
Okay, thank you, Jason. That was very informative, and I just knowing that as a teacher in the classroom, it really helps to think about getting people outside of the school to help us. I believe my FCS teacher is on here as well, and the garden at our school has fallen on the 2 of us plus our ag teacher, and that is where we failed. And so, Jason, I'm going to need that document so that we can get our garden back up and running, because I took notes while you were presenting on the video. I don't know if anybody else did, but having the strong committee, we have a strong committee, but we also are in classes. So if we had outside people, I think we would have been able to keep our garden going during this emergency. So Do we have anybody with any questions for Jason? We're fortunate to have Jason on with us right now. Um,
And don't be shy to unmute yourself and ask your question, or you can type it into the chat box.
Well, Jason, can I ask you a question while they're thinking of theirs?
Sure.
As you were talking, I really like the idea of the liaison, because it is hard as a peer to tell your other teachers, hey, you missed your garden time. I was thinking our retired farmers would be such a good resource for that. Even for the chair to have a retired farmer do that. Would that work?
Yeah, I mean, if you could find someone with that kind of experience, I think that would be great. A retired teacher, I mean, anybody that has either garden experience or teaching experience would be, I think, the ideal candidate for that kind of position.
Okay.
Or as chair, or just to have on a committee in any capacity.
Yeah.
I think that would be an ideal situation. I think very rarely do you have that
Right.
happen. Most of the time you're kind of scrambling to find folks at the beginning. But once I think you have an established committee and you make it fun, I think it's really easy to continue to get folks on it. I think the challenge I've seen over the years is if you don't get your committee established early, then you're going to struggle until you actually get it fully established in it. Some of the schools I worked at for 7-8 years, we're still struggling to get a committee to the level it really needs to be effective at maintaining the space and really integrating it into the school at the level that it needs to be useful, I think.
And I can attest to that, just because we have a strong plan, but we need a better committee. So having that document from you will help us personally, and I'm excited to get that.
For sure. Jason, I have a question.
Sure.
Sorry, my name's Ginger Buchanan. I'm at Huntley Project School, the food service director here. Does your FFA get involved with your school garden much?
It does not. We have a loose partnership with them. We've tried to do some gardening we have an agricultural education center here in Missoula that's linked with the FFA through the school system and 4-H as well. So we do partner with them, but most of our school gardens here in Missoula are at the elementary school level, and our FFA programming is all high school level stuff.
Okay.
We would love to do more. I think we're already both kind of doing a lot from our two ends, which is elementary school and then high school, and we've never been able to meet in the middle to the point that we'd like to, but we are working on hopefully a new small mini farm behind our central kitchen that COVID kind of derailed, but we're still going to hopefully get it in there in the next couple of years.
Do you have a greenhouse and an outdoor garden?
So since Garden City Harvest is the partner on this, we use our greenhouses to provide starts for all the school gardens. But our FFA site also has a greenhouse, and they mainly use that for flower starts to raise funds for the FFA. But yeah, both sites do have greenhouses.
Thank you.
And that was a quick 10-minute overview on that. I could have talked it for at least a half hour. So if anybody ever wants to talk more about it beyond just getting the garden guide that I can send to you, I would gladly talk about that more. If you're having a hard time establishing a committee or just figuring out how it should work, I would gladly chat with you via Zoom or over the phone.
Jason, I have a quick question. I was just wondering about your recruitment for those committees, if you could speak to some of the strategies that have worked best in terms of getting that out into the community, just the position availability, or if people are nominating other people, and what that kind of looks like to get people involved.
That's a great question and a very important one. Usually we'll go through the PTA initially to find folks. After we, kind of establish who's going to be the garden champion inside of a school at the beginning, which is usually a teacher. Sometimes it's a parent, but most often a teacher. And then we'll move on from there and see where they see opportunities inside their school community. That is usually through the PTA, but not always. Outside partnerships that already exist that are not necessarily with us are great folks to have in there. And then we'll throw it through the school newsletter if we're looking for new folks. We always try to get, this is something you don't always think about, but having a parent who's on the committee who maybe has 2 or 3 children that, maybe they have a first grader and then 2 kids that aren't in school yet. That's somebody that could be on that committee for like 8 years, 9 years. That's the kind of person you want. We'd love to have a dad or mom of a 5th grader, but if they're only there for a year, then we got to replace that person. So looking at longevity like that, that's a great thing to get. And then, looking outside the school and I always try to rely on the school itself to know, who should we be identifying that's in their greater school community, the surrounding neighborhood, maybe who might want to help with this space. There might be somebody that was a huge, in the garden club for the community and, is super knowledgeable, it's retired, that maybe wants to be a part of this. So I think asking your school community who they think would be good fits. And then when you get to that point when you need to replace folks, we've always gone to the PTA and then through the school newsletters, or just ask teachers, like, who do you think would be, a good teacher to get on this committee?
Thanks.
That was good. That was a good question. So thank you, Jason. I really appreciate your input. It's very, very helpful. So we're moving on to JB Capdeville. She has been with Paulson School District for 19 years and has been heavily involved in food corps in various roles. So I believe we are going to have a school garden tour.
Hello, my name is JB Capdeville, and I'm at the Polson School District in Polson, Montana. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about our Garden and Learning Center. Last spring, we had an opportunity to expand our garden. We started with a small little 2 raised beds 2 years ago, and this year we were able to, with some funding, put in a couple of more raised beds into our garden area. So we decided for our kids, let's not only make it a garden, let's make it a learning center. So what we've done is we've got several different types of plants into our beds, and the kids are able to come out and do drawings and learn about plants and learn about soil and learn about water systems. And generally what we do at this time during our pandemic is we have just limited kids in our building at this time. So we generally try to bring out anywhere from 4 to 6 kids at a time out with their teacher to look at the garden and draw pictures and get information about how things are growing in Montana. Another thing that I've had great experience with is working with food corps. I've been the farm and school coordinator for the school district for about the last 10 years working with food corps. And we've had a great experience in having a service member within our school district for the last 6 years. So we've not only been able to have our garden area as an educational center, we've also had education in the classrooms. And the strong connection and relationship we've had with food corps has been wonderful. I also work with Western Montana Growers Co-op as of working with local farmers and ranchers and bringing that information into our classrooms. And one way that I do that is working with the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program. Through the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program, we're able to bring education in with all of the snacks that the kids get, and I try to get as much local product into the classrooms in the spring and the fall when the harvests are coming on. One thing that is really beneficial in teaching our kids is where their food comes from. So what I try to do when I work with local farmers is I bring information in about the local farmers. And so this particular information is about our wonderful melons from Dixon. Dixon, Montana is not very far from here, and I love for the kids to experience those juicy melons. Another thing we like to work with is Montana Crunch Time, which is in October. And during that time, I generally use Campbell's Orchards, which is out at Finley Point. They're a local orchard, and we get wonderful apples from them, and the kids experience the Montana Crunch Time every year. So there's many ways that you can start and manage your farm-to-school programs. Most of us do live in rural communities, so getting to know families in the area. I'm sure there's kids in your schools or school districts that their families do any type of ranching or farming, and introducing and bringing those families in is very beneficial for the kids to learn about where their food comes from. Also, working with the Harvest of the Month program gives another opportunity to bring in local products. Every month, a product from Montana is highlighted, and there's many ways of promoting that, not only in your menu and lunchroom, but in your classroom and with education. So, there's many different ways to initiate and start and maintain your farm-to-school programs. It's a wonderful opportunity for the kids to learn about. So, thank you so much.
So yes, when COVID hit, it kind of changed everything for us, but we still wanted to be able to utilize and promote the Harvest of the Month program. And so what we did is, since we were packaging lunches for kids for remote sites and off-campus sites, we decided to create smaller packages for the kids to still try out the items. And so this particular one was Chex Mix that we roasted the chickpeas and then made the Chex Mix and mixed it all together. We thought it was a fun little snack for the kids to be able to try a different variety. And then in May, let's see what we did. We had beef. We made homemade jerky. And so that was really a fun project. My service member and myself spent a day making jerky in the kitchen and gave them all little slices of that. So that was really, really fun to be able to do. We also, we didn't do much through into the summer, but it was fun to be able to offer those snacks for the kids and still be able to promote the program.
They're pretty awesome ideas, and I'm making notes for our school. We are, Aubrey, I think we're running a little short on time. Should we do question and answer or save that for later?
We could take one question perhaps and then move to the break, and then we'll have more time for Q&A later.
Okay. Does anybody have a question for JB?
This is Molly Stenberg, and I work with Aubrey at Team Nutrition. I just wanted to compliment you on Janice, how you have the garden, but also garden and learning center, because I think that just sets an expectation in any parent or staff's brain that they can learn so much out there. And it's, the garden is awesome, but to tie it to the learning center, I think is really a smart strategy too. Inviting.
At the very beginning of the video, you could see we had 2 picnic tables set up that have the availability to put umbrellas up. And so we have had teachers going out there and coloring and taking different, vegetable pictures and things out there and working with the kids so far this fall. And so it's really nice for them to have not only their own space if they want to sit down, but to be able to have it spaced enough that they can walk around the different beds and even look at the bugs and worms and dirt. It's just fun for them to be able to be out there. So thank you very much for the compliment.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you do have a question for JB, go ahead and type it into our chat box, but I believe we're going to move forward to the mindful eating activity. And I believe, Sarah, you're going to take the lead on that.
Yes, so I'm going to be sharing my screen shortly, and this is the time that you'll want to get out your small snack and be ready to take part in this mindfulness activity. It's kind of a guided meditation / snack break. So here we go.
This is Nick from the Edible Schoolyard. Welcome back to Reflecting on Food. This episode, we're going to do a short mindful eating activity. Get a strawberry or other small piece of fresh fruit before continuing to listen. Really, press pause and go get a berry or slice of fruit right now. Okay, now that you've got your fruit, this activity might feel a little silly, or you might get impatient with it, and that's perfectly normal. Just listen and follow the prompts as best you can. Focus on the food and look at it like you're seeing it for the first time. Turn it over and look at each side. Notice the shape of it. Feel the food texture with your finger. Is it smooth or bumpy? How does it feel? Now, move the food close to your nose and smell. Try closing your eyes and smelling. What does it smell like? Smell it again, breathing deeply this time. Now, take a very small bite and chew it slowly. As you chew, notice the texture. Take another small bite and feel the food on your tongue. Notice the taste. Is it sour or tart? Is it sweet? What does it taste like? Finish the food however you want to eat it. Now notice how you ate it. Did you eat it all in one bite? Or did you continue eating small bites slowly? There is no right answer, just an opportunity to be aware of how you are eating. Mindful eating like this isn't something for every time you eat, but it can be useful if you want to appreciate your food or slow down when you are eating. Try it again with one of your favorite foods and see if you enjoy it more or notice something new about it. Thanks for listening to Reflecting on Food.
Alrighty. Well, I guess I just wanted to pose a couple questions to you all before we let you go for a short break. And I would just love to hear anyone's kind of initial reaction to the exercise. You know, if you found it calming or frustrating, or, you know, what, if anything, came up for you. And then I would also just encourage everyone to reflect on, did you notice anything? Did you learn anything about yourself or the way you eat or your snack just in that short practice? So if anyone has, you know, anything you'd like to share, either in the chat box or by unmuting, please feel free. Yeah, I definitely feel like I notice the flavors and like the scent of things more, like it's that full sensory experience. And yeah, so if there aren't any other comments, then we can take a break until 11. But just, yep, feel free to, yeah, you can mute or stop sharing for a short break until 11.
Okay. And then we don't want to leave. We just want to go and do our whatever we need to do for a couple of minutes and come right back. Okay. I am happy to present Fiona Jensen Hutch. Hitch from Columbia Falls. She is a member of the Food Corps service, and she has been working in that capacity for 2 years. She is located at Columbia Falls Junior High and Reuter Elementary, and we're going to show her video about seed packets.
Hi everyone, my name is Fiona Jensen Hitch, and I am a second-year Food Corps service member in Columbia Falls, Montana, working at Columbia Falls Junior High and Reuter Elementary. And today I'm going to be talking to you about some seed starting kits that I made and distributed during COVID at the end of May and beginning of June when schools were closed. So here's a picture of the kit, and here's a closer look at all the materials. So we've got on the left, I've got 3 different varieties of seeds. So each kit had 3 varieties, including a leafy green, since these went out in June, and that was the harvest of the month. I've got a paper bag, coin bags for the seeds, instructions, a recipe, a quart bag with potting mix, 4-inch pots, and harvest of the month stickers. So here's a list of all the materials that I used for each seed kit. Here's a closer look at the seed starting pamphlet. So I created these tri-fold pamphlets, and these were instructions for starting the seeds indoors. Also with a note that they could be started outdoors as well. And each kit also included a harvest of the month recipe, and this was a leafy green recipe for June. So as I mentioned, each kit had 3 types of seeds, including a leafy green for the June harvest of the month. And here I've got some radishes and beans, and I tried to only give out seeds that would be fairly easy to grow, so nothing that would require a lot of maintenance or would be kind of difficult climate-wise, so like peppers or tomatoes. And what I did is, with the help of paraeducators, is we separated out from the large packets of seeds about 5 to 10 seeds into these coin envelopes so that each student would get at least 1 or 2 successful plants from each envelope. And yeah, so after we had repackaged a lot of the seed varieties and packaged the potting mix into the quart bags, went ahead and assembled the kits. So put the potting mix in the paper bag along with the 4-inch pots, and these I had some left over from previous years, and I also had a bunch donated by a local garden store, so that would be a great resource. And there's the seeds going in, each one with about between 5 to 10 seeds, the 2 pamphlets going in, the instructions and the recipe. And finally, I just went ahead and closed these up, and then just to add a little fun, I had some of these stickers left that I wasn't able to use since schools had closed, so I added the Harvest of the Month sticker onto the bag. And there's the finished seed kit. Now I wanted to talk a little bit more about what I used to provide these kits. So we had the Harvest of the Month mini grant, and I still had some money left over, so that was what I was able to use to purchase the other materials for the kits, and this was mainly for the potting mix, all the bags, and I believe that was pretty much it. We had a lot of seeds left over from previous years, as well as I was able to get seeds donated by various seed companies. So that was where I sourced all of the materials and was able to use that grant for this. Now, in terms of distribution, what I did is that in May and June, since it was still technically school but remote, the lunches were being delivered along the bus route to students every day. And so what I did is I spoke with the bus coordinator, and I sent the kits along the bus routes to be handed out alongside lunches to any student that wanted them. I sent out 350 kits, and we have about almost 2,000 students in the district, so it was available for any student that wanted it, but I was not able to make one for every single student, really just due to time and capacity and funds. But that was the main project that I worked on during COVID while schools were closed this past spring.
What an excellent idea. I'm wondering if anybody has any questions. I see, is it Diani? You're about to send out mini grow kits as part of your win. Does anybody have questions about the seed kit project idea?
I just wanted to add really quickly. So the main reason I wanted to do this was since we had gone remote, obviously I couldn't have the students helping start the garden. So yeah, I was just hoping to provide this as a way for students to at least do a little bit of gardening at home. Obviously, if this is something that you're been doing now. I know, like, at least right now, my district is back in person, so it may be a little bit easier distribution-wise, or getting, I guess, students more involved in that. But I think would definitely still be, especially if your students are more limited in the days that they're coming to school, would be a good opportunity to, get gardening home to students.
I think it's an awesome idea. I actually did this with my students as well, not nearly as creatively as Fiona did, but I will be taking a lot of her ideas and incorporating it into our next project with the seed packets.
I have a question for Fiona.
Yes, go ahead.
So did you get any photos or anything back from the students hearing about how their seed adventures went after they got sent out?
Yeah, so I did not, but so this is obviously when we were fully remote after the schools had closed down. And after speaking with a lot of teachers who were just really having a lot of trouble even reaching students, I decided that my priority was more just getting the materials to them, and hoping that, it would be an opportunity for them rather than, I guess, like asking or requiring them to, to follow up on it, if that makes sense. But I did have students talk to me about it afterwards, when they came back this fall. So yeah, but yeah. Oh, and wanted to add that I was able to help a lot of our educators as well when we were doing this, because so that was a great resource in order to have just hands putting them together.
So in the chat box, Diani has shared any participants who send feedback for any of their projects gets entered into a raffle to win a prize to encourage active participation. That's a really fun idea.
I like that. Are there any questions about anything that you've seen, or any comments, any ideas that you're pondering for your next project? I know I wrote down that we need picnic tables at our garden center. I hadn't thought about that. So, Wesley?
Yes, I had a question for Diani. It said that they get entered to win a prize. What were some of the prize ideas that you all came up with? And did you get them donated, or were they already school-based?
Yeah. So she says they have stickers, gift certificate for ice cream. Deani is also in a very noisy office right now, so she's not going to unmute. Okay, so I am an educator. I'm in high school, which tends to be, oh, here we go. Sarah wants to know how we got the gift certificates. Oh, wow. Deani is the farm and school coordinator, a teacher for Ellenville Regional Hospital and Ellenville Central School District in New York. And then she says she got the gift certificates by asking for donations. It's pretty awesome. And I'm all about the donation thing. I'm not afraid to ask somebody to give us instead of having to pay for it. So I look at farm to school from a high school perspective, because I've taught high school for 25 years. So when we're looking at the seed packet idea, after I passed those out, then I got to thinking about how to get the high school kids more credit for it. So I incorporated more science questions. And I think, Sarah, do we have that?
Yep, let me.
Okay. I'm an English teacher, so please forgive me. I thought outside of my comfort zone and just sort of went more science fair style questions. So my elementary kids were just given the packets and they got to grow flowers for their mom, grandma, or whatever. But for high school, I wanted them to focus in on the actual growth of the plant. So I had them, so my thought process was to have them give us all of the information about their particular plant that they were given, go through the different stages of the plant, from the seedling to the fruit to the leaves, all that kind of thing. I wanted them to record the date it was planted. You can read down through what I put together for the kids. So they could record the date that it sprouted, when it became a seedling. And of course, all of these things would have been discussed with them in class so that they would recognize what those were. And then they could record their watering. And I also wanted them to record how much, so they put an ounce of water on the plant, but a quarter ounce came out the bottom, so that they could see the drainage process and how water goes through and it doesn't all stay on the plant. And then sunlight. Was it a cloudy day? Was it a bright day? Did they get direct sunlight? Did the plant get direct sunlight that day, or indirect? Those kinds of things, just to kind of keep a fairly decent record of what they were, what their plant was going through. And then any significant issues with the plant. I mean, did it get spots on the leaves? Did the cat knock it over? Did you have to replant it, or did it wilt one day, or the leaves were turning yellow? So what was that issue? And then we could discuss those issues as they came up and how to address them or correct them. So do I have anything past significant issues on the bottom, or is that the, okay. So as an English teacher, I like doing capstone projects with the kids. I want them, so this would have been more the science end. If I wanted to go deeper and have across the board, I would have had some kind of math involved with it. So they could have kept records and, the total ounces that were given minus the total ounces that drained through. I mean, we could have had math involved. We could also write about the type, was this a plant that's originally from our area? Was it transplanted in? They could have done a research project and incorporated these pieces into it, or they could have taken all of this information and completed a write-up for it. So, I mean, there's different ways to and all of that could be done online at home if we are in another emergency situation where we're learning from home. These kinds of activities, just keeping farm to school alive through the classroom is possible. I talked faster than I thought I would. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, there's a question in the chat box from Gretchen. Just says, thinking about other collaborators in the school, this could be a great assignment for middle or high school biology class also. So I guess that's not so much a question, but if you want to expand on that, Faith.
Well, I agree with that, Gretchen. I've worked in schools for 25 years, and I really love collaborative projects. I want all, like, if we could incorporate all of the core subjects into one project at the end of the year, I think that's the kind of learning that lasts a lifetime, more than just, sorry, math teachers, but learning how to add and subtract and put it on a worksheet. That application, anything that's applicable, goes further. I talked in circles. Any other teachers out there that, like, yeah, see, look at us. We're not even science teachers, Deani. We're reading teachers and taking the lead. Yep, that would be, Molly, that would be good to challenge them to do a recipe, and that they could create their own recipe or find a recipe and prepare it and share that with their family, and they could respond in class. That could be the FCS classroom, not even in my own classroom. Samantha says, I love project-based learning. Absolutely, I'm all about that. PBL, which is when kiddos solve a real-world problem, and school gardens are excellent PBLs. Absolutely, absolutely. And that's the kind of learning that lasts a lifetime. That project-based learning is the only way to go. So, Deani, were those vegetables that you guys grew at the school garden? Or oh, nice. Ginger, did you have a comment?
Yeah, we have our special needs kids go in our garden, and they weed it and they plant, and we have a big sale once a year, and we use the cucumbers and tomatoes out of the garden in the kitchen, and so our students go and pick that and bring it into the kitchen for us to serve when there's not COVID. It's hard to do right now, but without COVID, that's kind of our normalcy.
Yeah. Are you doing anything different right now, Ginger?
Actually, no. The only thing different we're doing is we're not able to utilize the garden right now. So that's been kind of sad. Everything's kind of been turned upside down. So hopefully we can get through this rough spell and get back to gardening and get some cucumbers in here and start putting them in little baggies to hand out. It's been tough. So we've had a lot of sickness in the school here recently.
Yep. Yeah. Well, Samantha said that she worked at a school in Utah, and she had the third graders solve the issue of not being able to identify what was growing, and then they made signs for the garden. And I like that. I'm taking notes because I want to grow my own project or my own garden program more so than it already is. So do we have any other questions or comments? Painted rocks make great signs. Yeah, go ahead, Aubrey, sorry.
It looks like Samantha also shared, for those of you who might be struggling with how to garden during this time, the CDC released consideration for outdoor learning gardens. So there's a link in the chat box that Samantha provided there. So, and there will be another resource that I'll share in a little bit. That's a similar thing. So that's great. Thank you for sharing that, Samantha. That will be really helpful for a lot of people.
Definitely. So our next presenter is Kristen Roth, and she is the ag teacher and FFA advisor for the Missoula Agriculture Center and Schoolhouse Meets.
Hello, and welcome to the Missoula Agriculture Center. I am Christy Roque, one of the ag teachers here on the farm. The Missoula Agriculture Center and Schoolhouse Meets is a school-owned and operated 100-acre working farm and state-inspected meat processing facility. Here on the farm, we raise sheep, hogs, and cattle. We offer our students a comprehensive conception to consumption curriculum. Students learn hands-on every step of animal agriculture. We are a school farm to school lunch program. Come, take a tour with me.
I'm Cindy Arnott, one of the teachers at the MCPS Ag Center. Students in our program have the opportunity to participate in the farm-to-table process from beginning to end. Students learn animal husbandry, reproductive science, nutrition, herd and flock management, marketing, sales, record keeping, and of course, processing. In addition to our livestock, students learn about forage and land management and harvest approximately 70 tons of hay per year. Many of our students participate in SAEs, or Supervised Agricultural Experiences. Some of those are traditional, raising and selling livestock. Some of them are job placement or agri-science research. And some of our students participate in SAEs in the meat processing lab. They work for an hourly wage, or they raise livestock which they bring in to butcher and market independently. Here I'm standing with the newest addition to the school farm, which is a small herd of belted Galloways. Besides being incredibly cute and looking like a walking Oreo, the Galloway is a perfect addition to our operation. Belted Galloways produce a moderate frame, so not too big and not too small, and can finish a carcass with grass feed only. This will allow us to produce a calf on our farm from beginning to end that can go straight into our production plant without needing excessive inputs of grain.
Hi there, I'm Tom Andrews. I'm one of the ag teachers from the Missoula County Public Schools, and this is the meat processing plant, and this is a part of the program that I am in charge of out here. And this is where it all starts. We bring livestock into our program. Some of the livestock we raise ourselves, and then we also purchase livestock from local farmers. And we try to pay a premium to them because we're able to do that. And we want to, part of our program's emphasis is to not only promote agriculture from within, but also to help the farmers and ranchers as much as we can. So we try to pay a better price to the producers in our area for the livestock that we get. Anyway, we bring the animals through this program, or through this corral system here. Secure some money from some of the COVID grants, and we're going to improve this area here. We're going to make it easier to bring livestock in and out of our program, and also we'll have a certified scale so that when a rancher brings a cow in for us to process, we can weigh it and pay them for that animal as it is unloaded. So it's going to really streamline our program. We'll go inside and I'll show you some of the facility on the inside. Okay, once the animals are in the building, this is where the animals are put down, and we have a locking box there for the cattle, and then we also have a system that we capture the pigs. And we use a captive bolt gun. We can't use firearms in our program, of course, because it's a school. And so we use a captive bolt gun, and then we also are purchasing an electric stun for the hogs. And once the animals are down, we bleed them out into this blood trap came from our farm. The steers are from the local ranchers that we're doing custom work for them. We are state inspected, and what that means is that we can process animals here. We have an inspector that makes sure that everything is wholesome and we follow all of the proper procedures. And then we're able to sell product, retail or wholesale, anywhere in the state of Montana. So we're able to sell to hospitals or grocery stores. We can sell to schools, which that's what one of our intentions is. We a lot of the whole cows that we get, we process and we put them into the school lunch program. And once the animals hang for between 3 days and 15 days for steers, and then they're processed. So this room is our fabrication room, and it's chilled to 45 degrees. So what that means is the meat can stay fresher or wholesome, because we never want the meat to get above 45 degrees, because that goes into the critical point of contamination. So as we practice or as we cut up the animals in here, the meat stays cool. This is some ground meat that we'll be sending to school. We have all the modern equipment that we need to process meat. We can make we can smoke meats here. We can stuff sausages. So yeah, we have all the equipment necessary. And most of that equipment came through grants that we got along the way. Freezer, and it's small, so we have to move product through there fast. But once we get a shipment for the school, usually it's up, as many as 1,000 pounds. Then we'll load it up and we get it to the school as quick as we can, because we can't let the temperature rise above 32 degrees of this meat. So we need to make sure that the meat gets back to the school frozen, which isn't hard because it's not far from here. And in order to stay state inspected, there's a lot of requirements that we need to follow in order to make sure that this meat's always at the right temperature and is safe to eat.
John Elmore, I'm with the Montana Department of Livestock. I'm with the Meat and Poultry Inspection Bureau. My job here is to make sure that all the products that are processed out of this facility meet the guidelines for safety for the consumers that meet the federal and state guidelines. It starts with everything from inspecting the facility itself to inspecting the slaughter process, which includes everything from the live animal, the
Stacey Raskiller. I'm the Supervisor of Food Nutrition Services for Missoula County Public Schools. And last year we partnered up with the Ag Center on at Big Sky High School, and we started using their beef that they processed and did all of that stuff with, and we started using it in our productions to go out to all of our schools in our district, which is really cool because you can't get much more local than having beef that was raised and processed by our kids go back into our program. And they have been the absolute best people to work with.
I hope you've enjoyed your tour of the Missoula Agriculture Center and Schoolhouse Meats Meat Processing Facility. Please feel free to contact us if you would like more information or are interested in having your animals processed here to go into your area schools. Well, I better get back to work, and have a great day.
So interesting. I think we have some questions on, it says how many hours how many hours does a student work on average a week?
And it looks like Christy wasn't able to join us, so I'm not seeing her in this list. So if anyone from the MCPS team was able to join, you can go ahead and unmute, but I think that they might have unfortunately not been able to make it.
Okay.
And I know it's hard to hear a little bit in that video. Meat processing facilities are very loud places. They've got fans and all kinds of equipment running. But one of the things that Tom did say is they are a state inspected facility, as he mentioned, and they were able to utilize some of the COVID grants in Montana that were directed toward meat processing. So this is a school-based program, and they were able to use that funding to be able to expand their efforts.
What an amazing idea. When I was at the summit, the FFA team from Missoula was presenting their idea, and I think they were at the beginning stages of their project. So it's just lovely to see it to fruition.
I do see that Deani said, I would love to take my high schoolers on a meat processing field trip as a career exploration, which is a really cool idea. And there are schools that have actually taken elementary students as well, and they think it's very interesting. Yeah. So that's certainly always an option. Maybe not in COVID times due to increase like requirements around, people being indoors and being around food, but it's definitely something to look at in the future. Molly's question is the facility within walking distance of the high school, or do students have to drive or bus there? And I do know the answer to that. So it's the Missoula County Public School District's Ag Ed program. So their farm, and it is not next to, so all 3 high schools in Missoula have the opportunity to have classes there. So they are bused to that facility for their classes. But I'm pretty sure none of the high schools are close enough to be able to walk there. I'm also seeing that no field trips this year at all for Deani, and same for other locations, and that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I think it's pretty nice. I mean, it's significant because during COVID, we're having a tough time getting our beef processed. Everything's backed up at least 6 months for us to have our steers butchered. So it's really significant that the school system in Missoula can utilize their own facility and also sell it and have the kids. And I was going to ask Kristen, like, so if the kids are working there, I'm assuming they have to be a certain age to actually do the butchering part. But that the job market for a butcher it's not an area people are going into. So I assume when they leave with that skill set, I mean, that covers our CTE program. I mean, it's a CTE program as well, which is another heart of mine, promoting the CTE programs. So,
What is the CTE program, Faith?
oh, I'm sorry, career and technical education. So focusing on kids who don't necessarily need to go to four-year institutions to be productive members of society. You know, we all need a plumber, we all need a butcher, those kind of programs.
Awesome, thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Deani, I see that you are working in a school district with a 73% eligibility for free and reduced lunch. I completely understand that. I worked 15 years inner city Jacksonville, Florida, and it was a challenging job, but very much worth it. So as we see questions are kind of, people are still in their thought process, we can move on to our last section, and that would be Aubrey's going to share some resources and things like that. And then if you still have questions, feel free to type them in and we'll come back to them.
So I'm going to share a few resources that are available out there, knowing that this is the tip of the iceberg. Also share about some upcoming events and opportunities to get more involved. So like I said, there's tons of resources and guides out there. So just start with the Montana Farm to School website, which is shown here, and move from there. Slides will advance. So due to the coronavirus pandemic, this is of course a stressful time for everyone, especially school staff who are working to provide education and nutritious meals despite constant changes, daily changes in what they can and can't do. So please know that there are many resources available and I'm sure are in the process of being created to support your efforts. I've listed just a couple here to get started. So the National Farm to School Network has created and compiled numerous resources that are related to farm to school during COVID on their page. So I didn't break out a lot of those resources because they've done a really good job of bringing a lot of those together. I'm hoping that they have the CDC one that was shared in the chat box, and they have like the School Garden, Support Organizations Network resources and webinars that are really excellent. Lunch Assist also has fantastic toolkits, templates, and ideas for school nutrition programs to ensure the safety of school nutrition staff and the families that they serve. So I wanted to give you an example of one of those resources. Georgia Organics just released these two resources to support gardening and taste testing during COVID-19. So don't worry about jotting down all of this. I should have said this earlier, but the slides from this presentation will be posted on our training and event page along with the recording, as well as we will send it out to you all. So you'll be able to get all of these links and resources after. One great tool you can use is Montana Harvest of the Month if you're in our state. And this is a program that brings together farm to school core elements in an easy to use framework. The goal of Harvest of the Month is to support healthy Montana children and adults, as well as support Montana's farmers, ranchers, processors, and food businesses. It is open to K through 12 schools and after school programs, early care and education sites, healthcare, grocery stores, and food pantries. It is free to register and you can do so at any time. Participating sites get access to posters, handouts, guides, and many other resources. as I'll show you here. So one of these is we have developed farm to plate videos for each of the foods, and most of them are done now. Unlike the other Harvest of the Month resources, these are publicly available on our Harvest of the Month YouTube playlist. So you don't need to be registered to access the videos. You can use them in classroom lessons, for remote learning, or promoting Harvest of the Month and local foods to families and communities. You can even share them on social media to get people excited. So let's check out the video that features apples, which is this month's Harvest of the Month.
The old saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, certainly holds some truth since apples are a nutritious treat. This month's Montana Harvest of the Month is apples. There are over 7,500 varieties of apples grown worldwide, and 2,500 are grown in the U.S., such as Granny Smith and Rayburn. However, only a handful of varieties are commonly found in grocery stores today. Apple trees are a long-term investment. They can take multiple years to produce fruit after planting. However, they can live up to 100 years old, providing delicious lunchbox treats for generations. The Bitterroot Valley and other areas in the western and south central part of Montana are the largest apple-producing areas in the state. Planting the seed from your favorite apple variety will not grow that same variety and will likely produce apples that are bitter. To get a desired variety of apple, the trees have to be grafted. This means taking a branch from the desired variety and attaching it to a root to form a new tree. Buy apples with firm, shiny, and smooth skins with intact stems. They should smell fresh, not musty. Be sure to remove apples with bruises or rot from the bag or container so they do not spoil the other apples. Apples are in the fruit food group and are packed full of nutrients. Apples are an excellent part of a healthy diet by providing fiber, vitamin C, potassium, and other nutrients. Most of the apple's nutrients are located just below the skin and are removed when peeled. Potassium is an electrolyte and is needed for many functions in the body, including the electrical activity of the heart. Branch out and try a different way of eating apples. Apples are a fruit with many uses. They can be eaten raw, cooked, dried, or made into many other delicious recipes. Before eating or cooking apples, it is best to scrub them under cold water. Let's make a delicious apple recipe: baked cinnamon apples. Apples are an excellent part of a healthy diet. Bite into a Montana apple today. The Montana Harvest of the Month program showcases a different Montana-grown food each month in Montana communities. We hope you will join us in tasting Montana this month.
Okay, so moving on to some other resources that might be helpful. Bringing in additional staff or volunteers can be helpful, of course, for expanding or starting your farm to school initiatives. Food Corps service members, just shout out to all the awesome Food Corps service members we have on the call. Woohoo! Our food court is hosted, food court members are hosted by schools to implement farm to school, and they're provided training through the food court program. You can also consider a VISTA, intern, paid staff, volunteers, or partnerships with other entities like Garden City Harvest partnering with local school districts. There are many more opportunities to learn about Farm to School, so we encourage you to join us for that. We have a second Farm to School showcase, as I mentioned before, on October 27th, which will be a farm to tray tour that will focus mostly on beef to school. And so that'll be a really fun event to see the whole kind of chain through from the farm to the tray at the school. We'll also offer 2 additional showcases this spring, but those are to be determined, and I guess determined with considerations with COVID. Information about all of the events, including our archived webinars and training materials, can be found on our training and events page. So if you missed our series that we had this spring of Montana Farm to School successes, I encourage you to check that out. Due to COVID, we postponed the Montana Farm to School Summit that was supposed to be held this year till August 2021. So we hope that you'll join us then. Soon we'll be opening the workshop proposals. So we encourage you to share your farm to school stories by applying to present at the summit. And of course, happy Farm to School Month. October is National and Montana Farm to School Month, and it is a perfect time to celebrate or launch your Farm to School program. Montana Crunch Time is part of this and is just around the corner. It's a fun way of celebrating National Farm to School Month by crunching into a locally or regionally grown apple on October 22nd at any time during that day. Register your crunch by October 31st to help Montana win the Mountain Plains Crunch Off. Virtual crunches are encouraged, so if you do a Zoom crunch or if you have people take selfies, definitely encourage everyone to get involved no matter where they are. And of course, I really encourage you to share your farm to school stories. You can share photos, lessons, stories, and recipes using our Share Your Story form on the Montana Farm to School and Harvest of the Month websites. Or you can just email me anytime. It definitely brightens up my inbox. We would love to feature your story in our upcoming trainings or on the web. So definitely send the big or small stories that you have. Use social media to get the word out and use our hashtags MT Harvest of the Month or MT Farm to School so we can find your posts and then reshare them. For those of you who are looking for additional help, we encourage you to get in contact with Faith, who is our host for today's Montana Farm to School Showcase, or Ginger Buchanan, who is our other Farm to School coach. And they are happy to help you make goals, make an action plan, and work through some of the challenges that you might have. So give them a holler, and they're happy to help. So I will turn it back to Faith for more opportunities for Q&A for all of the presenters.
Thank you, Aubrey. Anybody have any questions for any of our presenters, or for Aubrey or for Sarah or for myself? And Ginger's actually on here as well. Are there any questions? So just kind of a side note for the Harvest of the Month, or the Crunch Time, it is on the 22nd, and I went to my food service director and asked her to make sure that we have apples for that day. So, and we get the Montana apples. A lot of what we do for Crunch Time, it was a little more challenging this year, but we have local people that have apple trees, and we'll take one of our little buses out and have the kids actually pick local apples. We're a little more restricted this year, so we're only able to hit one person's tree. But last year, I mean, we had thousands of apples. So don't hesitate to get your students involved that way as well.
That's really awesome, Faith.
Again, I'm about that free stuff. If I can get a free apple and not pay for it, I'm going to do so.
It's a great thing to glean the apples too. I mean, a lot of people can't eat as many apples as their trees produce, or in some cases they live in bear country, and so they really need to get those apples off of their tree and out of their property.
Yeah, that's a good point that somebody from the eastern side of the state wouldn't understand.